Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We are radio for the ready-minded. We are the podcast for the prepared, but more than that, we're all about God, family, and country, but really down to our community. And you are our community. Thank you for being part of the show. Thank you for being here tonight or today or wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening. Thanks for joining us. It's going to be a fun episode. It's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. We're going to be talking about some really good things for your brain, which is how to discern truth, what to believe, but more importantly, how do we know when to believe something? Is this really happening? If you watch the news, that's happening. No, that's happening. No, wait, what? Right? The narratives are all over the place. The information is oftentimes false, inaccurate, and intentionally bad. So we're going to be jumping into that today. And I've got, as usual, Shane and Paris in the house. What's up, my brothers?
Yo, yo, yo.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. What is that from?
I walked right into that one.
It's from the Truman Show.
Truman Show, yeah.
There you go.
Sorry, I walked right in. I didn't mean to do that.
We're all living in a dome. Watch out for falling lights. In the meantime, make sure you guys are prepared for that with some good first aid kits, some dry bags, because, you know, Truman did lose his father in the water, and he did sail away. Our friends over at Survival Frog, check them out. That was one of the dry bags. I've been testing that thing like crazy. It is awesome. For the price, it is incredible.
That's awesome.
I had bigger, better ones that I bought from other companies, and this is lighter. It fits in my go bags. It's fantastic. I can put my radios in it. I've tested it with water on the outside, with water on the inside. Everything stays where it's supposed to be. I love it. So check it out. Use the code Prepper Talk. It's all one word. You're going to get another 10% off at checkout. Without further ado, though, let's jump into it. I'm excited because this is a discussion like launched from one of our private group. I'm not going to say names, but I'm going to say thank you. You know who you are. You spawned this entire episode, and Shane and I wanted to do it last week, but couldn't do it without Paris. Exactly. Because it is the trifecta conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want to be part of this conversation, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Go over to our Facebook group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. If you're not a member, send in a request, and we'll get you plugged in, and then scroll down and find this topic. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because it's something, you know, when this topic was popped up when it was provided, it's something was thinking about for quite a while. I've actually trimmed down a lot of my call it doom scrolling, whatever you want to call it. I've really stepped back on that and just trying to scan the headlines rather than do deep dives, and because it's really draining. And I know Paris, you know, we were talking about this a little bit as well. And let me just say this. Shakespeare said it right when he said, all the world's a stage, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And I believe that's absolutely true, more now than even back then, especially when it comes to governments and politics and media and corporations and everything. Everything is planned. Everything that is said, that is done, is on purpose. And it has been game played. It has been thought about and planned for a long time, and then finally implemented. So that's my my baseline of where I'm starting on this conversation, right? All the world's a stage.
That's such a powerful statement in and of itself.
Speaking of that,
we see the news, we see what's going on. You hear things, whispers. Any social media you're on, you hear everything and anything that could be crazy or true, and you have to have not just your tinfoil hat on, but you also have to have your tinfoil hat like filter.
Tinfoil shield.
I don't know, a shield. Yeah, like there's so much that could be like, what? But yeah, the whole world really is a stage, and I've found personally that to be true. And I've also found that the people to believe are the ones who've lost the most and have nothing left to lose and are standing by the truth.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like the whistleblowers anymore are getting so much backlash and getting destroyed so much
Mm-hmm.
that it's almost impossible not to believe them, because it's like, wow, why are they going after you so hard if this isn't true?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my first little litmus tests, I guess, if you will. How much have they lost, and how loud is the opposition against them?
Well, Paris, you're going to say something, but then I have something to chime in on.
Well, I'm reading this book right now. My one of my family members, my mom's cousin, was a professor of philosophy at Brigham Young University, and as you know, that's a religious organization, a religious college as well. So to bring in those two things, philosophy and religion, you're going to have somebody that's really got a head on their shoulders and thought through a few things. And I'm reading this book called Faith and Intellect that he wrote. It just came out, actually. And in this particular, there's a section that kind of corresponds to what we've just been talking about, and what, I feel like goes along with this topic of our show. And it says, a saint, latter saint is somebody who is a follower of Christ. A saint is made in the worldliness of a person is okay. A saint is made as the worldliness of a person is pushed out by the faith in Christ. One who accepts the gospel of Jesus Christ and has been born again of water and of the Spirit has formally announced his intention to be in the world, but not of it. That intention cannot be equated with the accomplished fact. And then it says that it involves working through every idea, emotion, habit, association, contract, expectation, debt, attitude, action, etc., replacing those that are worldly with those that are of Christ, or those that are more of a spiritual thing. And I loved what he said in the last part here. I'm skipping several lines here. It says, when a man has demonstrated that the world has no hold on him, he has overcome by faith. And I feel like that's something that we need to really, preppers, you guys are listening, and whether you kind of know it or not, you are aware of what's going on in the world. You're awake to the things that have been happening and have happened. And you've seen, like, you're the guy that that meme that says, hey, you need to go find your conspiracy theorist friend and thank them, or tell them, hey, what's coming next, because we need to be ready. Like, that's us. That's who, most of the time, that's us, and who's listening here. And so it's when you've demonstrated that you kind of can separate the world from where you are and who you want to be and what's important to you. I feel like that you have the ability to discern good from evil, right from wrong, more effectively. And so that's why I thought I brought that up, because I thought that was a great way to say it. And that's kind of, it hit me too, as I was reading it last night and before I was going to bed. And I was like, I don't want to be, of course I have to live in the world. I have to live in Babylon, as they say, but I don't want to be of the world. I don't want to be the doom scroller. I don't want to be the guy that's, constantly, doing all the stuff that the world is doing, buying the next gadget or gizmo or whatever, and trying to be cool and famous and all those other things. And I mean, there's some of that where we have to be in the world, where, like, we're doing this podcast. And we're not doing it to be famous. We're doing it to help people. And if we get famous because of that, it's our intention. So it really boils down to your intentions. And so I really love that idea that, what are your intentions? What's your purpose? What is important to you? And be about that, because Christ, whether you believe in him as the savior or not, he's a pretty popular guy. He's pretty darn famous. You know what I mean? Like, pretty much everybody in the world knows about who he is, or that he was at least they know that he was a big figure in history. And he was just a humble guy trying to, show us the way. And so I just feel like there's still a place for people to do good things and be great in the world, but with the right intentions and the right motivations and the right purpose, and doing it the right way, that we can discern and make a difference like we're supposed to, I think.
Yeah. And I wanted to backtrack a little bit to Scott's comment there. I totally get what you're saying, Scott, and I tend to agree with that point of view. However, I think we're so far down this rabbit hole that I don't know if sometimes I can even believe the whistleblowers, right?
Okay.
How can those types of things even get out in the media sometimes? So I just want to say I'm very skeptical of even of those types of situations. And here's one simple example, and it doesn't match exactly that your example, but okay, Hunter Biden was just convicted, right? 3 felony accounts of basically lying on his form, purchase a handgun. Okay, first of all, there are so many other things that he should be convicted on other than that, right? Second Amendment, there shouldn't be any restrictions whatsoever, right? So I think that conviction of his, I think there's a lot of people out there cheering, yeah, he got convicted and whatever, and who knows if he's going to see any jail time, right? Probably not. His dad could easily pardon him, right? But first of all, he should not have been convicted on that, in my opinion, because there shouldn't be any restrictions to the Second Amendment, right? So that's my basis on that. And so it's a show, it's a stage, it's being set up to, okay, if we can convict Biden, we should go after all these other people as well, which we know that, and maybe this is taking off topic a little bit, but we know that there are so many laws that are being broken, and most are unconstitutional laws. Let me say that. But that the government is not prosecuting. I mean, I won't even go into that. So that is setting the stage for further persecutions, I guess you could say. And there's plenty of other examples with Trump. That's a whole nother topic. I'm not a fan. It's just two sides of the same coin, two wings of the same bird. And again, not go down that road. What to believe? How do you believe something or not believe it? And when can you discern the truth? What's reality? What's not reality? What's AI? That's all coming into play right now, especially with AI. It's all deception, and it like you say, Paris. It all comes down to discernment. I think if we were to end right now, that is the key point, is we have to discern for ourselves, and we have to be in that position to be able to discern, because I don't know that it's even possible right now to know the truth. Whether it's a whistleblower that we seem like we trust, that sounds good, that feels good, I'm just so skeptical at this point.
Well, I think that's a good point, but I also think that there's still things you can do to validate and verify, right? That example for me is one validation point, not the validation point. I want to clarify, because you're right. There is so much that it's impossible to know everything anymore, right? Of what's going on in the world. I mean, I look at the whole Epstein story, and I question if he's even dead.
Exactly.
Right.
Then you look at Ghislaine Maxwell. Obviously, they're protected. So obviously, we're not going to be given the whole story, because everyone that's protecting them are the powers that be that are in on it, right? So I have to then look at other credible factors and see, okay, what does the evidence suggest, right? What am I being told so loud and so repetitively that I can completely take out of the purview of what am I evaluating? If I'm told the same message from every news outlet and it's the same script, I can take that out completely, right?
Yeah.
And I can start filtering out. It's the story. Okay, it's the story of the teacher who has a jar, and he tells the students, okay, I need you to come here and fill this jar. And he's got big rocks and little rocks and smaller rocks,
sand
and then right,
water,
and silt and water.
Yeah.
And if they fill it up with the sand first, and then the medium-sized rocks, and then the big rocks, they can't fit everything in, right? But you got to filter out. The big rocks are the story that they're trying to tell you all the time. And I'm going to flip the analogy, because the analogy is that you can get everything to fit if you prioritize your time right? Take care of the big things, the most important things. In our life, that's prepping. That's self-reliance. That's getting off of all the digital media, getting off of the world stage that they're presenting, right? So we want to include those, but when it comes to decision and filtration of information, we've got to filter the big things off first, right? Set up a screen to, okay, I can discard that information. Okay, and then as the smaller, medium-sized rocks start rolling through, how do I identify which of those are more right than wrong? and it has to go to the evidence. What does the evidence suggest?
Well, it's like a classifier in a dredge, like a gold dredge. You
Mhm.
have a classifier on top. It takes out the big rocks first, right? Then the medium size and so forth, to where you finally get down to what you're looking for is the little flakes of gold. Most likely, they get caught in the mat of the dredge there. Not the dredge, but the
Swoosh. Yeah.
the sluice box. Yes.
That's the thing. That is exactly it. We have to sift through all this stuff to find or get to the truth, right?
I think something that's important to remember, and this is something that my wife reminds me of on a regular basis. She's like, she always asks me, like, why are you so worried about all these things that are happening in the world? And I'm like, well, at some level, I need to be there. Like, men, there are evil men out there that are trying to destroy us. And so good men need to be able to stand up and fight against it and draw the line and say, you shall not pass.
And
So
identify those lies.
right. And so, but to my wife's point, she's like, look, you're my husband, you're our kid's father. That's first. So in my wife's wisdom, I've remembered, look, I got to make sure that I'm taking care of my family. Like I got to make sure I'm taking care of my house first. And so hopefully that's I wanted to just make sure that's a reminder. Like the stuff we're talking about is after your family is okay, after your kids are being raised properly, after your wife and your husband and your marriage is solid and strong. And if you're having struggles, who cares what's happening in Ukraine if your kid is struggling? Like fix your kid, fix your spouse, fix yourself, and then start worrying about Ukraine. Then start worrying about Hunter Biden. Like so many of us, I think, get caught up in all the things that are happening in the world that we absolutely let what the most important thing is go. And not that, and I totally believe that understanding what's going on with these governments is super important after we've made sure our home, because I think we were talking about this the other day, Scott, like the building block of our country is the family. You know, I was talking to somebody, I thought it might've been you, but I know you agree with it, so that once your family is good, your community will be good. Once your community is good, your state will be good. Your state's good, your country's good. You know what I mean? It's just the building block is that family unit. And I think that's so helping to discern, like part of discernment to me is where should your focus be? And it should be on making sure you're good, making sure your preps are right. And then like if some idiot wants to go do something dumb out there, and it's like, let them do it. Like, of course you need to be aware of it, because when they come close, and there's that old adage too, like I don't remember the story, but the guy who I think it was something about the Nazis came for these people and I wasn't one of them, so I didn't stand up for it. And then the Nazis came for the next group and I wasn't one of them and I didn't stand up for them either. And then all of a sudden there was nobody left but me. And so when the Nazis came, they took me and there was nobody to stand up for me and I didn't stand up for, like, we need to stand up for each other. And that's super important to be able to discern. And I was, Scott jokingly said earlier before the show, he's like, Paris, don't you bring up, who's that guy Peterson they always bring up every episode? So I'm going to bring him up right now. And he was talking in an interview about how everybody who looks at what happened in the countries that have been overtaken by these regimes, and especially he was specifically talking about the Nazi regime and Hitler. He says, we all look at those people and say, we would be, you read the stories. Oh, I would help Anne Frank. Oh yeah, I would be Schindler. I would be the guy that would help these people trap and get them out of it. And he's like, no, you wouldn't. No, more often than not, you're going to be the guy that actually slowly but surely accepts it. And then all of a sudden you're the one that's calling the 800 number on your neighbor. Jordan Peterson said that when in his hometown or wherever he was at the time during the, the 2020 era, he said like 30 to 40% of his community was willing to call on their neighbor. I mean, that's the mentality of people who haven't discerned what's really going on. They just fall in line with what everybody wants them to do. And so I feel like those of us that have discerned some of these things are getting more and more validation, thankfully. However, at the same time, it's the opposition is getting more and more, it's getting stronger as well. So we have to be careful.
Yeah, and then really at that point, once you have that knowledge, you are required to share, right? When you have been warned, you must warn your neighbor. You have to sound the shofar, right? Blow the horn, create the warning. But like you say, Patriot, you have to realize, okay, what can I control? What can't I control? Most of the stuff we can't control. We have no influence over whatsoever, right? It may not affect us directly. But it is part of the bigger picture which we're all trying to put together. I mean, that's me. I'm trying to put this larger picture together every day. Okay. And the big question is, when do I react? Right.
Yeah.
What do I wait? Is it time to go? Do I bug out? Do I bug? There's so many questions we're trying to answer. That's why we're trying to get this information to find the truth, is so we can answer questions for ourselves, and people who rely on us, we can provide them with what our answers are. That's really ultimately, as I see it, and as our contributor as well. He says, his struggle is when to react according to the information he has.
Yeah.
And absolutely, that is absolutely the struggle. And
what's interesting is that there was people back in the 2020 era that were like, they're going to come and knock on your door and they're going to, hold you down and they're going to stick you with some stuff. And so there was a big freak out, the mandatory, everything, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that was a legitimate, like, I was like, you know what? I could see them doing that. Like, I could see it. Like, I felt like that was a real issue.
Yeah.
The good news is that it never happened. So I agree. Like, when do we react? Like, when do we, we're going to talk about this a little bit, maybe in the next episode. But recently I was listening to Lynette Zhang, who is she's an economist. She loves gold and silver like we do. And she was saying, look, you guys, when she was like on her channel, somebody asked, she was doing a live Q&A, and somebody said, will you tell us when you bug out? And she's like, you'll be one of the first to know, because I'll do a live real quick and I'll tell you I'm out of here, guys. And so when do we bug out? When do we act or react to the things that are happening? That is a great question. And I think that's going to come down to each person's individual experience that they're actually in at the moment. And you're going to have to just be able to trust, one, your gut, and two, if you're a Christian and you're a believer, trust the Holy Spirit to guide and direct you, but that intuition, intuition and Holy Spirit is kind of the same things. You boil it down. But anyways, for those that aren't quite believers, it's your gut feeling. Like, go with your gut, trust that initial feeling, because you're going to get the right, usually for me anyways, that first initial thing is the right one. And then when I start second guessing it, that's when I know I'm like, okay, nope, no more second guessing. Go with the first impression and let her rip.
And for me, it's always better to act than to react, right? So it's better to like Job leaving Babylon or leaving Sodom and Gomorrah, right? They left just before, or Lot, excuse me. They left barely just before the city was destroyed. I mean, within, I don't know, minutes, hours, whatever, maybe a day. But hopefully will be the case for most of us, so we can get out in time, if that's our plan, right? But would it be better to have gotten out a week, a month, a year before? Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's better to act than to react. So in getting all this information and trying to discern what the truth is definitely helps me with my plans, because I'm making plans to bug out. I'm working on that every single weekend. I'm being proactive, and I'm trying to act instead of, oh no, this happened, and then react to it, which I guess I am somewhat reactionary, right? I'm seeing things happen, I'm reacting to them. But those things are not necessarily affecting me immediately or directly. Right.
Okay, so let's back up a second, because you guys have covered a lot of really good nuggets. You started talking about the contributor in our group who's talking about when to believe and reacting. When do I react? He also said the biggest concern is also not getting overwhelmed. Just remember that you should only worry about what you can control. If you can't control it, don't worry about it. Just be prepared on how to respond. And that got me thinking about a quote from Thomas S. Monson. He's big in our church. If you guys know who he is or don't, here's the thing. He said, when the time for decision arrives, the time for preparation is past. that is, I think, the biggest key. Like, when to believe. Okay, Parrish, you said follow the spirit or trust your gut. We've talked about the source, knowing, is the source a reliable source, or is it really reliable at giving you the wrong information, right? Or misinforming you. Identifying your source and knowing your source. We talked about vetting your sources. We've also talked about identifying what are the indicators. Is the evidence pointing to that as the truth or that is a lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think more than anything is have a plan ready and live ready so that you can bounce if you need to bounce, or you can shelter in place if you need shelter in place. All right, you reactionary living keeps you in high stress mode all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where planned living keeps you in low stress mode.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
And the same goes for getting information. If you take time and plan to get information, or maybe Shane, you're the biggest and the best at keeping an active pad of paper near you all the time that you're writing on. Like, have your list of things. Okay, this popped up. I'll research that later, and prioritize your time so that you're not getting into the doom scrolling and getting sucked in, right? And be like, okay, I'll look into these things later.
Mm-hmm.
And what we talked about AI a few weeks ago. This is one of my best new filters. I don't Google anything anymore. If I really want to know something, I use an AI software to have them do a web search for me.
Oh,
and
excellent.
then I can exclude sources. I can say, don't look at mainstream, just look at evidences of this. What do we have? And then I'm like, oh, okay. And that will give me a trail to go down. And I was totally against AI at first, but now I'm like, this has a use. Right? And there's no ads on this page. Okay, find the tools that work for you and use them. And if you've got tools that you use to find the information, validate its truth and evidence, please light up the comments below and tell us, because we need to share that with our groups.
Yeah.
Our community needs to know that. And so, guys, this is one of those tools. Use the technologies to your advantage. But more than anything, it goes back to prepare so you don't have to live in fear. Have a plan so that if things get derailed and you don't know when is the time to believe it or not, it won't matter because you're okay. Like, I want to never have to bug out. I want to build a life that's so good that I don't have to take vacation because I'm all, hey, I'm on vacation every single day because I love my occupation. Hey, you guys have heard that viral sound all over the web. I want that kind of life, but for prep. Like, I want to live a life where we had a guest on a few weeks ago, Jerry Hendry. Love Jerry. He blew my mind. I still think about our conversation every day. It's been a week. Every single day, I'm like, oh man, that was so amazing. I've got to start doing this, and I'm going to do that. I'm like, I need to hurry and implement those things. It was the most fantastic. It was regenerative farming, the most fantastic, eye-opening, awakening experience on agriculture that I've had my entire life. And that's not that impressive because I'm 47 and I'm not a major gardener or anything, but to me, that's life-changing information and understanding that I'm forever grateful for. So guys, go back and watch and listen to that episode because we're going to do more of that. If you want more of that, I want more of that. So we're going to do more of that. But you want more of that too. But all of this goes back to, am I building a life that is resilient, anti-fragile, and that I don't have to worry about as much when and what's true because I'm aware of what the truth really is for me and my family. My family is safe. We're fortified. We have a plan. We have resources. We know how to resupply even when the grid's gone, right? Having the plan in place eliminates a lot of the stress and worry about when, and your discernment will be way better if you come at it from a place of stoicism, I guess you could say, a place of calmness, as a place of, oh no, the message is fearful and I'm getting anxiety triggered. Because we all know when that comes, we don't make as good decisions as we do when we're calm.
Yeah, that's true, man.
I've been there.
Yeah,
I've jumped ship from one burning building into another burning building, one burning ship into another burning ship, thinking, "Oh, it's not, the fire's not as bad. It's better over there."
Right.
Once
Yeah,
the other
yeah.
ship went all the way down, the wind kicked up and lit that one all the way up and everything, right? You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta come from a place of calm in discerning your information. Otherwise, Satan and all his little minions are gonna be like, "Oh, be afraid! Oh, be afraid! Oh, you're gonna get destroyed! Don't do that! Oh!" And all you're trying to do is figure out where your next
Just
meal's
make
coming
the
from.
right decision. That's
Make
what
the
you're
right
trying to
decision.
do.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast, I think, or a training of Alex Hormozy last night, and one of the things he says, I realized over the years, I think it was a podcast that he was on, and he said one of the things I've realized over the years is I'm anxious when I haven't prepared well enough. Anxiety, panic,
Mhm.
fear, all those things come when he's not prepared for something.
In
And,
anything, right? Professionally or personally or family or whatever.
yeah, he gets on stage across the world, so you can still imagine. I mean, I've spoken public speaking, they say, is the second, after fear of death.
Death.
People would rather die than public speak in most statistical surveys.
Or rather be humiliated, right? It's
Right.
not necessarily public speaking, but public humiliation, right?
Exactly. And so I mean, he gets on, he says, when I'm prepared my speech, when I've prepared my remarks, when I've prepared my PowerPoint, when I'm prepared, he says, I can jump on that stage and I can present. And he says, when I've prepared for my phone calls, my business calls, or my conference calls, whatever, he feels way more confident. And he says the anxiety is not even there, if at all. And I feel like that's true in, being prepared isn't just like making sure you did all your homework and you're turning it in. Doesn't just mean studying for the test before you take the test. It means like being prepared for anything and everything life can throw at you. And that's what our whole channel is about, is being prepared. Of course, we kind of attract more of the food storage, the guys who were zombie apocalypse guys, and that's fine because that's a definite part of being prepared. But preparedness is a way of life. Like just being ready in advance of things reduces the ability to be fooled or be deceived. And so if you've, got some experience and you've done some homework and you're wise because maybe you're reading good books and you're just learning the wisdom of the world and then the wisdom of God, I believe that you should add that. Because even in the scriptures, in the Bible, it says, seek ye out of the best books, and learn wisdom. And so, or in the scriptures, it says that. And so it's important to just read good, wise things. And the more that you do that, the more I think, in my experience anyways, when somebody gives me something, I'm like, which that doesn't make any sense. Like that's not. And when something doesn't make sense, I go
Trust
one of two
yourself.
ways. One, I either need to learn something new, or this guy's trying to deceive me, and it makes sense because it's my radar kicking off saying,
exactly.
that dude's an idiot. So I'm like, all right, I need to do a little. I need to trust but verify.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge help to me in life. Trusting but verifying.
Yeah, there's one word that maybe it's a little late to bring this up because this could be a whole conversation in itself, but the word balance, right? We all like to have a balance in our lives. Obviously, when you're married, your wife, my wife in particular, she likes completely different things than I do, and we have to find a balance, and it's not easy. It's really difficult. And in prepping, I mean, you've got to, like you say, you got to live in Babylon, but not be part of Babylon, right? Or live in the world, not be of the world. That's a balance. But I think if I look at myself, there's not a whole lot of that balance in my life. I think I am way heavy weighted to the preparedness side, to the get out of Babylon side. I don't know how else to describe this, right? If you guys understand what I'm saying, is I'm not trying to balance my worldly life with my spiritual life or my preparedness life and find a balance there. No, I'm way heavy weighted to the other side. And I don't see much balance there. So again, we're running a little late, but I think we could talk about that more. Is that good? Is that bad? For me, I think that's good. There's this, again, like you started out talking with Scott, we got to, again, kind of live in the world, but not of the world. But do we? That's another topic, like there are whistleblowers that are supposedly telling us the truth. I'm still skeptical a lot of the times, right? And which puts me heavy weighted on on the opposite side of balance. But is that good for me? But that's where I feel like I need to be. So I think it's going to be different for everybody. And this is where I've come to land on more recently, is that for me, my balance is way to one side than the other, on the side of preparedness, on the side of getting out early, getting things done first, acting before reacting. So that's where my balance, I think, is askew.
I wouldn't say askew, but that is where your balance is. Every one of us has a different place where we are, and what we're balancing is different. Mm-hmm. The question is, what are we discerning, and how are we discerning what's going on around us and utilizing that information to help us be better prepared or become reactionary? And the term that comes to mind is a psychology term called affective state. And basically, to oversimplify it, is what your emotional situation is, what you're emotionally going through, your feelings, your worries, concerns, and everything else will affect your decision making, will affect your bias, and will affect your outcomes. So if you can be in a place of calmness, and we talked about this before the episode started, to be still and know that I am God, right? Yeah. Everything around us is crazy. That's okay. Be still, be calm. If you can affect your affective state, if you can help yourself by making decisions from a place of calm, you will improve your outcomes. By living prepared, those hiccups and bumps in the road get smaller and smaller because you know how to navigate around, over, and through them. And you're prepared to do so. When you're not, every news bulletin will freak you out. So if you're on the freak out side, join our group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. Come listen to the podcast, come participate in the conversation, and let's help get you to a place of calm. That happens through preparedness. Also, be sure to check out our friends over at Survival Frog. They've got some fantastic things, killer deals right now. Use the code PrepperTalk to save 10% more on checkout, plus whatever offers they're giving you. My favorite is their survival meats. Have you guys had the chicken? It's delicious. It is delicious. But guys, remember, take the time to make your decisions. Take the time to figure things out before you have to act.
Better to be early than late.
Yep. Amen. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for being part of the family. We are out of time, but we're not out of mind. Hopefully you have a ready mind and are focused on doing those things that are going to be most impactful for your family's preparedness. Thanks for tuning in, not tuning out, and being part of the Prepper Talk Radio podcast family. See you next episode.
See you
next week. Take care, guys.